who took the real card from the crime scene and... the real killer. Allow me to elaborate. What if this trace of blood was the reason for swapping it? For the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime? Where are you going with this? Take another look at the photo, and at the victim's head. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down the back of his head. Couldn't a drop of that blood have fallen on one of the cards? I suppose. The killer then took the card to hide the blood. Regardless, the evidence is non-permissible. Oh? Right, regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years, you used to be a lawyer. You know what a serious crime it is to conceal evidence. Oh, we can just discuss the finer points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You wanted to know why the killer would have taken a card from the crime scene. And now, I've told you. That one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence, you see. This is baseless conjecture. Baseless. Oh, what? His objection sounds so out of place. Ooh! Oh, I assure you, it's quite based. What? It's amazing, really. How a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime. Okay. Oh, try picturing it in my head. Whoa, whoa! This is cool. Holy shit. Whoa! Yeah, I forgot it did this. God, this looks so much better in the HD version. Sheesh. Or in the smartphone ports. The murder took place in the hideout. So the body of the luckless victim was found at the poker table. And before the killer swapped the card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood on it, in the victim's hand. Given this, there is one decisive problem with this scene. Well, what is it? Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on a card, his position in this diagram doesn't fit. The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses? Whose position doesn't fit on the card? Given... it trickled down the back of his head onto a card that was on the table. In which case, he's the wrong way around. Well, isn't it the victim's position that's the problem? I don't follow your logic here, Mr. Justice. Well, look, the victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You'd think any blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him. Ah. Take a look at the photo again. If he bled in this position, the blood would fall on the floor, not on the cards. Why, that's right. So, what does this mean? Incidentally, we were sitting in swivel chairs. Swivel chairs? Oh man. Apollo, try turning the chair around. What the fuck? That's cool. The chair was facing the other way? It would have been. Oh, it would have to be. So, we have to assume that at the time of the murder, the victim's chair was facing away from the table. When Mr. Wright returned from informing the police, which way was the chair facing? When I came back to the room, the body was facing as seen in this photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We know now the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction. Again? Let's test your reasoning. Our reasoning skills again, shall we? Apollo, whose location on this diagram contradicts our new understanding of the crime? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses. whose location creates a contradiction if the victim was facing away. Killer. He wouldn't have been behind him. The victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard for the killer to hit him from the front? Sitting where his indicator currently is. I would think it'd be quite hard, yes. Oh god. Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense. Why would the victim suddenly turn to face the wall? In the middle of a game? I believe a sufficient reason will soon come to light. What? There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Try marking it on the diagram. What? But... there's no room to put a mark where the killer should be. Don't worry. Let's think it through and see what we find. We know the victim was facing toward the wall at the time of the crime. That's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer have to be standing to strike our victim from the front? There. Literally directly in front of him. The killer had to be standing, well, here. You get points for flair, but that's about all you get. I thought I was onto something there, too. I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Or are you claiming the killer climbed the cupboard and hit him from above? Huh. It's simple logic, really. If this was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that at the very moment of the crime... Wait, I know. At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there. What's this now? I mean, that's the only explanation, right, Mr. Gavin? Your Honor, I have a suggestion for the defense. We should arrange to examine the cupboard in the hideout immediately. Bailiff, send a team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cupboard. Ah, Your Honor? What? There's one more thing your men should look for. Please, give this to the bailiff. Yes, I see. You do belong in the courtroom after all, Mr. Wright. I do my best. Oh man. But let's forge ahead here while we wait. Look at the diagram once again. Ah, it's been changed. If the killer was standing here at the time of the crime, then this cupboard wasn't here, which means... Apollo, try moving the cupboard. Whoosh. Thank you. As you can see, the cupboard was the problem. At the time of the murder, it has to have been as shown here. Right. Now everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my! What's this? What is it now? Look at the diagram of the crime scene once more. It appears we found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction, in fact. Huh? Oh, dang. Notice something, Apollo? I do. Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching its logical conclusion. Now then, Mr. Justice, please point to the new contradicting indicator. Is it the victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness? Which indicator is it in this diagram contradicts what we know about the crime? This one. Because they can't see through a window, because it's blocked by a cupboard. Duh! Kaboom! About this cupboard. Are we all okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. The cupboard would completely cover up the window to the stairs. That's right. Someone standing outside wouldn't be able to see in. Someone like Mr. Gavin. What did you say? Oh. Is the coolest defense in the West losing his cool? Don't expect me to play along with your little game, Wright. It's only a game until someone gets killed, Mr. Gavin. And someone was, while the window to that room was blocked by a cupboard. So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you'd like to explain to the court. Exactly, where did you witness the crime scene from? Excuse me, Your Honor. Order. This is a court of law and I will have order. We just now received word from our investigative team at the Borscht Bowl Club. They've examined the cupboard in the hideout, Your Honor. Oh? And what did they find? Well... not well, Your Honor. It turns out there's a secret passage behind it. What? Well, I think we found out where he, witnessed it from. Ah, yes, I believe I mentioned something of the sort before. This is one of the tricks to the room many of our regulars know about. I do remember him saying something about that now, now that he mentions it. A secret passage is a handy thing to have when you're engaged in illegal goings-on. Never know when you might need to duck away from the eyes of the law. So the room has a secret passage. Where does it go? The other side connects to the restaurant above. The underworld bosses could get away from the cops and enjoy a cold bowl of borscht, no doubt. Just like our killer. You see where our line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo? I see it, but I don't believe it. That girl wasn't kidding when she said I needed this trump card for the last hand. At the time of the murder, the window was blocked and the victim's hat was only off his head for a few minutes between Mr. Smith's murder and Mr. Wright's return from calling the cops. In other words, the only place anyone could have seen the victim's bald head was from inside the hideout. Well, Mr. Gavin? Come on, say something. Dare I ask what really happened that night? Actually, I think we can probably figure it out ourselves at this point. That night, for whatever reason, our killer had a date with Mr. Smith. A date with destiny. There he crouched, hidden in the secret passageway behind the cupboard, holding his breath, waiting for just the right moment. Then the chance came and he took it. But hell. Sheesh. Miss Olga O'Reilly was out cold, struck by Mr. Smith. But his time was soon to come. Mr. Wright went upstairs to call the cops, leaving Mr. Shady Smith alone in the hideout with the unconscious dealer. Then our killer stepped out from the secret passage into the hideout. The victim must have heard the cupboard sliding aside. He wheeled his chair around to look and... Quabamo! After the deed was done, the criminal must have seen the blood on the card. He would have, of course, realizing the need to destroy the evidence. That single spot of blood told the whole story of the crime. Too bad for him he didn't linger any longer in the hideout that night. If he had, he might have noticed the cards on the floor. And the fact that they were all red. Oh. Woohoo! Well, it seems this trial has taken yet another turn. I'm truly sorry I had to see this day come, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Gavin? Mr. Payne? Yes, Your Honor? The prosecution will continue its investigation. As for Mr. Phoenix Wright, the defendant, he is hereby cleared of all suspicion. Oh! believe me when I say that I don't believe this is happening, Mr. Gavin. But I'm afraid circumstances call for me to issue a warrant for your arrest, immediately. Objection! Of course he'd object. No need to apologise. I rather enjoyed myself. It's not every day you get to witness a legendary attorney's dirty tactics firsthand. Your point, Mr. Gavin? Frankly, Your Honour, I'm shocked that a person of your calibre would be taken in by such a low-grade parlour trick. Excuse me? The defendant is cleared of all suspicion? This is hardly the time for jokes, Your Honour. Mr. Wright hasn't proven anyone's guilt or innocence here. What he has done is use illegal evidence to put the blame on someone else. And not just anyone else, but me, his own defence attorney. Illegal evidence? Let me ask you, Mr. Gavin. Is there still any reason at present to suspect me of wrongdoing? Of course. This bottle, for instance. The bottle of grape juice Mr. Wright was drinking. How do you intend to explain away the fingerprints on the murder weapon? And not just any fingerprints. Am I right, Mr. Payne? Actually, yes. The fingerprints on the bottle were, upside down. I seem to recall this being an issue earlier. The court in this case demands an explanation. I can think of only one reason why one would hold a bottle upside down, and that is to hit someone with the bottom of the bottle. Well, Your Honour? See how the caught fish squirms to the last. Well, Apollo? Yes? Your boss seems awfully concerned about this bottle still, but I'm sure you can come up with a suitable explanation. Just like that? Yeah. Just like what? Why would anyone grab a bottle upside down, other than to... what if it was, like, you know, low down? If it was... I'm trying to think of a reasonable... Say if you were sat high up on a chair, and it was on the floor next to you, you would pick it up, upside down, and then put it in your other hand. More than likely. Don't let him trick you into thinking his explanation is the only legitimate one. Is there really another? Take another look at the court record. I believe you'll find a simple answer there. In plain sight. How about you just say the answer in plain words? It would be hasty to deliver a verdict with unanswered questions indeed. Well, Mr. Justice, Mr. Gavin said that the court and this case demanded an explanation. Don't worry, justice won't leave until justice is done. Perhaps the defence would care to enlighten the court. What evidence do you have to explain why the fingerprints on the bottle are upside down? Yeah, this one. Because look. They're all lower. So in order to actually pick it up without kind of crouching down to get it, I would say that's it. It's actually easier to show you than explain, Your Honour. Place that bottle on the floor next to your chair. Excuse me? On the floor? Yes, now reach down and pick it up. Without getting out of your chair. See, you naturally go to pick up the bottle by its neck. With your fingers upside down. Look at this photograph taken on the night of the murder. The defendant, Mr. Wright, sat here, playing piano, bottles of grape juice on the floor to the side of his piano bench. He would have naturally picked up the bottles upside down several times. Wow, I can't believe it was that simple. Recall our dinner that evening, Christoph? I was drinking my usual juice then too. Basically, you use the bottle on the table to do the deed. But then you must have remembered. So you went and picked up one of the bottles from under the piano. And you switched the bottles. You took... that's why there was no card in it. You took one of Mr. Wright's bottles and made it look like the murder weapon. That's why there wasn't a card in it. So what would happen if we examined the one that's at the crime scene? If we get to. Would the card be in it? What do you have to say to these charges, Mr. Gavin? Fascinating. So, this is the legendary attorney's famed tactic of misdirection. What? You claim that I switched the bottle. Where is your proof? Proof? Well, that's, as I thought, more baseless conjecture. I'm afraid your bottle of proof is quite empty. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Your Honor, when you initiated the investigation of the hideout earlier, do you recall I requested an additional investigation? Ah, yes. I have your memo about that here. Retrieve the bottles from under the piano at the Borscht Ball Club. And here's one of the bottles in question. What, are you going to dust that for fingerprints too? I would be surprised if any were on that, but his. Miss Gavin probably wouldn't make such an obvious mistake, true. That bottle won't bear a trace of anything. Say, Apollo. Yes? Why don't you go ahead and examine that bottle? But why? Just humour me. Mr. Wright? That bottle will solve this case once and for all. What? That's some bottle. Oh, I can already see it. There's a card in it. And there's the card. It's the Five of Hearts. There's something inside the bottle. There it is. What's this? That card. It can't be. Recall that unpleasant woman's testimony for a moment? Miss Olga O'Reilly? Yes, our little swindling... Devochka. Okay. That night I planted the card like I was supposed to. And Wright lost the last hand. Just like he was supposed to. Then Smith searched him. But the planted card was gone. The trap failed. Wait, this isn't... You're telling me that this is... the planted card you've disposed of? The one you mentioned in this piece of testimony? I happened to put my hand in my pocket and found a card. Yes, I snuck a peek at it and found it was the Five of Hearts. I had a feeling something might happen, so I disposed of the card. Before the game. Disposed? Where? There was an empty bottle of grape juice I had been drinking right beside me. I threw the card inside the bottle. There it is. The Five of Hearts. This is the card. The bottles were swapped. The only one who could have done that was the fourth person in the club that night. You, Mr. Christoph Gavin. Ah. Breakdown! What the fuck? That wasn't much of a breakdown. He's just like, holy shit. That is all. We got him. Is this your idea of revenge? Phoenix Wright? Revenge? Revenge for the events that took away your attorney's badge 7 years ago. My past is like my logic. Straight and true. Nothing's changed. All I did was point the finger of justice in the proper direction. Fine. I'm glad we could have this little tete-a-tete, right? This is insane. What about me? Don't I get to prosecute anyone? That's all he cares about. What about my judging? I believe this time we've finally come to the end of our trial. Mr. Payne, do you have a report for us on Christoph Gavin? He has admitted everything. We're processing his arrest now. I see. Still, one has to wonder why he would do such a thing. He didn't even have a connection to the victim, did he? None that we know of. Mr. Wright, have you anything to add? I'm afraid I can't shed any more light on the matter. About this victim, Mr. Shaddy Smith. His occupation was listed as traveller. An odd profession to be sure, and that's all we know about him. I'll arrange a follow-up investigation, Your Honour. Good. Mr. Wright? Yes? 7 years, and you still haven't lost your touch. Christoph Gavin was a man with much significance for me. both as a friend and as a lawyer. Well, and a lawyer. He was extremely talented, to be sure. I needed two things before I could confront him. The first was a place where no injustice could be tolerated, or would be tolerated, this courtroom. The second was a man who would tolerate no injustice. In other words, a defense attorney. You, Apollo. Me? A dark time is coming for our legal system. A twisting of justice brought on by our very own court system. We have to set it right. Mr. Wright. Our work lies ahead of us. And I, for one, am looking forward to it. Yeah! Well, this seems like a good time to announce a verdict. This court finds the defendant, Mr. Phoenix Wright, not guilty. Yeah! Oh man, this game is as good as ever. Not too shabby. Court is adjourned. Oh my, that was long. 2.5 hours. Thanks, Apollo. Oh god, you came through, just like I thought you would. I'm pretty sure I didn't do a thing in there. It was you who cornered Mr. Gav, the killer. I couldn't have done it by myself. You sensed it too today, didn't you? Your ability. Ability? Yes, a sensitivity I lacked. Or I lack. You'll come to understand it soon enough. Wait, I wonder if he means... Yes, the fact we can perceive people. I have one question for the witness then. You say you saw the moment the defendant hit the victim. Is this true? Of course it's true. What's this weird vibe I'm getting? What was that, Mr. Wright? You'll have to find the answer to that question yourself. The answer? Right. Today was full of questions without answers, most of them about Mr. Gavin. What possible reason could he have? Or could he have had to commit murder? Perhaps you'll learn that in the days to come. Huh? Wait, you don't know, do you? This locket is the key. Huh? Oh, that reminds me. I met the girl whose picture is in your locket. Your daughter, right? That's right, she's my daughter. You know, you were right about this locket. Eh? I took this off his neck the night he died, but it looks like our dear Russian scam artist saw me. So the truth is, this locket really did belong to him. Wait, but that's perjury. You testified. You said that locket was yours. I said no such thing, actually. Huh? I merely said that it was a locket with my daughter's picture inside. A subtle distinction, but a distinction nonetheless. And it's the truth. Wait, but then, why? Why was the victim wearing a locket with a picture of your daughter inside it? Sometimes the straightest path to the truth isn't the best one. Give it time. You're still just getting started with your career. Speaking of which, I may be out of a job. I work for Gavin Law Offices after all. I still can't believe I just saw Mr. Gavin get led away in handcuffs. Apollo? Yes? How about coming to work for me? Eh? You mean at the Wright & Co. Law Offices? I mean, there's not a single attorney in my generation that doesn't know it. I can't imagine that to be true, but... Wait, but didn't you... You're not a... Oh, I turned in my badge, yes. I'm not an attorney anymore. Okay. That incident 7 years ago. That legendary trial. And at the middle of it, or at the middle of it all, was one man, Phoenix Wright. The case reached its sad conclusion, and he left law for good. Have you ever thought about coming back to the courts? I'm not qualified to stand in a court of law, I'm afraid. Didn't you notice in today's trial? There was a single piece of forged evidence. Forged evidence? What are you talking about? I'm talking about evidence that shouldn't have existed. A naughty magician's trick. One piece of evidence struck me as odd, it's true. It just seemed, well, too perfect. I'll bet this was the forged evidence. It's the card. He even said a magician's trick. You mean this, don't you? I got this from your daughter, Mr. Wright. Yes, that card couldn't have been found at the crime scene. Why? Because the killer took it with him when he left. Leaving the wrong card in its place, luckily for us. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer. My verdict was already handed down 7 years ago. Then, you really... Yes, I forged this card. One look at the crime scene should have told you it wasn't real. But you can't do something like that and call yourself an attorney. Who's calling themselves an attorney, Apollo? So it's true. The rumour is true. 7 years ago. None of that matters much now, does it? What the fuck? Oh. I punched him. It's your story from here on out, Apollo. Perhaps I can help you turn the next page. My office's address. Drop in if you like. Mr. Wright? Oh, about your uppercut. Try yelling, "Take that" next time. I find it packs a little more punch. And Apollo, thanks for today. I had a good time. What? Oh my. And with that, Mr. Wright walked out the door. And that's how my first trial ended. A lot of mysteries went unsolved. And, at the time, I had no idea they were all related. Every mystery that day, connected by a single thread of logic. I'd find that out soon enough. My name is Apollo Justice, attorney at law, and this is how my story begins. And that's one trial down. There's only 4 trials in this game. It's very, well, I'm gonna say it's similar to Justice for All, to be honest. Turnabout Corner. That's the next trial. Yeah! What? Overwrite. Yes, of course. Ding ding! There it is. Turnabout Corner. Either way, that is going to be the end of the session, because it's been 2.5 hours. Let's do the tutorial case. It's basically the tutorial trial in 2.5 hours. That's the longest tutorial there's been, I think. Either way, that's going to be the end of the session. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. And until next time, take care.